An entire civilization survived for centuries by building a city no outsider could enter. The year was 1963. A man in central Turkey was renovating his home when his hammer struck something hollow behind a basement wall. With cautious curiosity, he broke through to reveal a dark, descending passage. The air that rushed out was cold and carried the scent of damp stone and ancient, lingering smoke like the breath of the earth itself. His flashlight beam shook as he stepped inside, each footfall echoing into the impenetrable black. 30 steps down, the tunnel widened into a cavernous space. Stone troughs stood in silent rows along the walls. Ahead, a single wooden door, warped and fragile with age, stood slightly open. He pushed. The groan of the hinges seemed to wake something ancient. Inside, a schoolroom frozen in time, stone benches, a blackboard carved directly into the rock, and in a layer of fine dust, the small, perfect imprints of children's hands. Here's what he didn't realize in that heart-pounding moment. This wasn't a basement. He was standing on the roof of a city. Derinkuyu, a name that means deep well, but it was never a well. It was a subterranean fortress, an architectural marvel carved with painstaking patience into the volcanic rock, 8 levels deep, 200 feet straight down into the belly of the earth. A labyrinth capable of sheltering 20,000 souls, complete with chapels where prayers were whispered by candlelight, stables that housed livestock, presses where grapes were turned into wine, and even a burial chamber, a city of both life and death, entirely concealed from the world above. But why? Why choose to live in perpetual twilight, surrounded by stone? The answer isn't what you assume. Many imagine fearsome invaders, Romans, Persians, armies with gleaming swords and scorching fire. But the design of this place tells another story. The massive doors weren't engineered to barricade against people. They were built to seal something else out, something you couldn't see, something you couldn't fight. In the 8th century, the world went dark, not from storm clouds, but from a thick, choking blanket of volcanic ash. Mount Hasan, 200 miles away, had torn itself apart. It didn't just spew rock and dust. It exhaled a deadly miasma of carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide that rolled across the plains like an invisible flood. The very air became a poison. On the surface, life suffocated. Crops turned to gray sludge. Sheep and cattle collapsed where they stood, their lungs seared. But deep below, in the cool, stable embrace of the earth, the air remained mercifully clean. The ingenious people of Cappadocia had been carving shelters for generations. They saw the poison on the wind and knew they had to go deeper. They expanded their tunnels with urgent purpose, transforming them into a fully functioning city, a city with one brilliant, life-saving secret, a ventilation system of breathtaking sophistication. 5,000 shafts, each just wide enough for a man's hand, were drilled upward through solid rock. They reached for pockets of clean air, pulling it down into the deepest chambers, while the toxic gases above were diffused and neutralized. The system was so perfectly calibrated that modern engineers stand in awe. It requires no power, no mechanics, just an innate understanding of pressure and flow. 1,000 years later, you can descend to the very bottom of Derinkuyu and still feel a faint, cool breeze on your cheek, a ghost of the wind that saved them. But here's the terrifying twist. The city wasn't just a refuge. It was also a perfectly designed trap. The doors were immense stone discs, weighing half a ton each, mounted on central pivots. They could be rolled into place only from the inside. Once shut, they were impregnable. No one could break in, and no one could break out. In an act of unimaginable collective resolve, the people of Derinkuyu chose to seal themselves in a tomb of their own making, rather than be killed by the world outside. Picture the profound silence. A mother singing a lullaby to her child in a room that has never seen the sun. A priest leading hymns in a chapel where the only light comes from the flicker of olive oil lamps, casting dancing shadows on the walls. A vintner tending to his fermenting grapes in a cellar that hummed with the constant, low temperature of the earth, for months, sometimes for years. They lived, loved, taught, and prayed in that suspended reality, their entire world reduced to the echo of footsteps on stone, always listening, waiting for a sign that the death above had passed. And then, one day it did, the ash settled, the poison thinned, the great stone doors were rolled back. They emerged, squinting into a sunlight they had almost forgotten, their faces pale from the long darkness. The world they returned to was scared and silent, stripped bare. But it was alive. And it was theirs again. Derinkuyu was never truly abandoned. It became a recurring sanctuary, a generational heirloom of survival. Whenever the sky darkened with a familiar, lethal threat, the people returned. They rolled the stones shut. They waited. They survived. Today, you can walk those same tunnels. You can run your fingers over the smooth, deep grooves worn into the threshold stones by thousands of passing feet. You can stand in that silent schoolroom and almost hear the echoes of children learning their letters by the dim, smoky light of a torch. You can take a deep breath of the same cool, clean air that once meant the difference between life and oblivion for 20,000 people. The city is empty now. But the question it asks is more urgent than ever. What would you do if the very air you breathed became your enemy? Would you flee aimlessly into a dying world? Or would you have the courage to dig deeper, to build a future in the dark? Derinkuyu didn't just hide from danger. It understood it. It designed a solution so elegant and so resilient that it outsmarted catastrophe itself. And that is the true, humbling mystery. Not why they built it, but how they possessed the foresight to know they would need it. Follow for more mysteries of civilizations that outsmarted nature itself.